Hello. It seems like lately the subjects that are coming up for me are the same subjects I've already covered as far as trying to heal the childhood wounds. So I'll start to be down on myself and think, what the hell is going on? Why are you having to come back to this one? Shouldn't you have already crossed this one off the list? And today it occurs to me that just as we have layers when we put on masks for other people and we have to start peeling off the layers, there appear to be layers also of healing. And with me, that's prompted by new knowledge, which is why we are revisiting why people are afraid of love. Because of course we think, oh, snakes, spiders, heights, water, those all make sense as far as fears, but love, why would anyone be afraid of love? There actually are quite a few of us, and it comes from that conditioning. Now, it may be childhood conditioning, most likely is, but with this one, of course, there could be conditioning along the way, even as adults, depending on what kind of partners we pick. So on YouTube, Spirit often will put the videos in front of me that I'm supposed to watch. Sometimes I figure it out, sometimes I don't. Last night I figured it out. There was a lovely woman doing a TED Talk about being afraid of love. And I have put that video in the Twin Flame playlist because she was wonderful and will be so much more detailed than what I'm going to cover here. I did make some notes from some researching I did, and I'm going to get off camera to present those. And then I'll come back and kind of give my simple man or simple woman version. All information that we experience from our five senses pass through the amygdala. And this is what sorts the information that comes in from taste, touch, vision, smell, and hearing into what is threatening and what is not threatening. The issue that comes up is that the mind can trigger a threat when there really isn't one. And that's due to a connection to something that it has made in the past. And that's been filed away. The amygdala goes to the part of the brain that has those memories or experiences filed away and determines then if this new situation is an actual threat or not. The threat system, though, doesn't know the difference between the information from our minds versus the five senses. It just wants to know, is this a real threat? Information from our minds is not real. These are things like thoughts, memories, judgments, daydreaming, talking to ourselves, criticizing and telling ourselves stories. Of course, the stories come from our experiences, and those stories can stick with us a long time until something comes along and makes us start to question whether the story is still true. Mental experiences are not real. If we were to think of something threatening in our past, that could trigger anxiety and get our threat system working. We might remember something that made us angry or afraid a long time ago, and that still can trigger our threat system so that it feels like it is happening again. The information that's real is from those five senses: what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, and what we smell. So when we let our threat systems take control, we can act in ways that really are not proportional to the situation. This happens because our sense of threat is being created by our perception. Unlike animals, humans can imagine a situation that isn't actually happening, and it can feel real. We can experience stress, anxiety, frustration, pain. Now, like with daydreaming, we know that we're just coming up with a pleasing scenario, but our brain doesn't know the difference. The daydreaming can trigger positive emotions, though. It's when we imagine the terrible things that could happen that we trigger the brain's threat system. And we're feeling and experiencing real emotions and distress, even though we're just imagining what could happen. If we aren't aware of the difference between what's being brought in by our minds versus what we're actually feeling with our five senses, we're kind of being pushed around by our minds. This can trigger the threat system, and suddenly we are all about survival mode. And that can launch us into the options when we sense danger. It could be fight, where we're ready to put our dukes up and attack. It could be flight, running or avoiding. Or it could be just freezing, shutting down, turning off our emotions, and that can include numbing them with substances. I'm back, and I'm sorry if my eyes look a little squirrely in what may seem like a silly thing. I just found out that I had been blocked on a social media platform, and it may be something that others think is no big deal. In this case it was, but it actually plays in perfectly for the subject. My amygdala checked in with my file cabinet to see if this had been experienced before, and was it a threat or was it not? And it triggered a lot of pain to have it happen again. See, we are conditioned by our experiences, and unfortunately we come to expect certain things, and lo and behold, law of attraction, that's what happens. Now, what does this have to do with fear of love? Well, if you ask someone why they didn't want to mess with that love stuff, they might say, because I've been lied to several times, because I've been cheated on, I've been betrayed. I don't even know if what they're saying is true. I don't know what to believe, so I'm just not even going to go there. And if we look back, it could be that it goes clear back to childhood. There are parents that lie to their children. There are parents that betray their children. There are parents that will build them up one minute and knock them down the next. And so as an adult, it may be hard for the adult to ever accept anything anyone says as sincere or the truth. All those things triggered emotions that became something to be feared. And so we try to avoid them, and yet we attract them because we expect them. It's ironic, I know. So now I'm going to go back to something that was shared in the video by Trillion. Here goes. Now, in the video that I put in the Twin Flame playlist by Trillian, and I'm sorry I'm not remembering her last name right now. She talks about testing that was done on rats. Now, I know that testing on rats has been deemed to be necessary in the past. I'm not thrilled with it, but I'm going to share the story because it makes so much sense with this. So the scientists would play a particular sound and shock the rat over and over and over again. When that sound played, the rat would be shocked. And so pretty soon, of course, the rat was terrified of the sound. Then the scientists stopped shocking, but the rat had been so conditioned that it still was afraid whenever it heard the sound. After a while, though, when there was no shock, the rat figured out that it could hear the sound and not receive that painful shock. And it started to lose its fear. Now, we're not rats, thank goodness, so that we have escaped that kind of testing, and I know that a lot of good has come from the testing. It still bothers me to think of the sacrifice of their lives and well-being, but I know that it had merit. And in this particular experiment, it sheds a lot of light about what goes on in those of us who, a lot of times unbeknownst to ourselves, are putting up barriers so that we won't experience love. And why would that be? Well, for me, as I analyze it, my amygdala would have been checking into my file cabinet in my brain and going way back to my childhood when love meant pain. Love meant betrayal. Love meant never feeling safe or steady on my feet. Love meant being confused about what I was always doing wrong and what was the matter with me. So if that's what's being dredged up from my file cabinet, although I haven't been conscious of it, it would make sense that I would say, I don't want that shit. And it's so ironic because most of us want to be loved. Although I have to say I did get some interesting clarification a week or so ago, because I think a lot of times when we say we want love, what we're really saying is we want a companion that we can trust, that we can be vulnerable with, that we can have fun with, but that we can also cry with when we need to, that'll still be there for us when things go a little wonky. You know, we say we want love, but I think a lot of times we're talking about companionship, satisfying companionship. Anyway, I digress. Big surprise, right? So if a person has a lot of experiences in their life, they're going to be having that threat system go, danger, danger, Will Robinson, stay away. This is going to bring pain. This is going to bring lies, betrayal, cheating. And it makes us go back to those times when we thought there must be something wrong with us, because children usually take it on themselves. We don't point our finger at the parent that wasn't there for us. We think it must have something to do with us. And it's triggering all those things. It's triggering all those insecurities, all those things that a lot of us have been trying to heal are actually being triggered by love of all things. We're afraid of it because we're afraid it's going to take us back to what wasn't pleasant. So why the rat thing? Because the rat was conditioned to associate that pain of the shock with the sound, but then when enough times had gone by and the sound didn't bring about the shock, it lost its fear. And I think by us having awareness of what's going on, we can start to do the same thing. So if the only thing that's real is the five senses, we would have to start being more mindful about what we were feeling or experiencing with our senses, instead of listening to what our brains were saying, because remember, the brain can still trigger that threat response. And so if we started to, what is that saying they say now? Catch some feels? I don't know, I probably have that wrong. If we are getting into a relationship, situationship, encountership, whatever, with a person, and we're starting to think it might be turning into something that could be love, we are going to get that threat response and maybe start a fight to make it all turn to shit, and then we don't have to deal with it. Or we will maybe just run from it. Or we will shut down. And if we think about what we were experiencing, there might have been no threat at all. Maybe we felt good. Maybe we felt happy. Maybe we felt accepted. But we let our minds take us back to those other times, and suddenly we're not relying on our senses at all. We've got the danger sirens going, and we've got to pick, what are we going to do? It usually doesn't bode well for any kind of success with another person when we are fighting or running or shutting down. We're defeating ourselves by thinking the same thing is always going to happen. We're defeating ourselves by expecting the shock without realizing that maybe this time the shock isn't going to come. So maybe that picture of the rat will stay in your mind. And the next time you have that temptation to lash out, to ruin things so you'll be safe, or to run, or to wipe out all emotions, you'll remember that the rat lost its fear when the shocks quit being administered. It's something to think about. The only way we're going to get over the fear of love is to keep taking chances. And pretty soon, when the shock doesn't come enough times, we'll lose that fear. All right, I'm kind of worn out and I'm getting a headache, so I'm going to shut this off for now. I hope it makes sense. It made sense to me at the time. I'm a little bit flummoxed at the moment, so please forgive me if I got a little off course there.